Have you ever noticed how the loudest noise in your life often comes from inside your own head? The constant chatter, the endless doubts, the racing thoughts that never seem to stop. It's like carrying around a storm that refuses to settle. Even when everything outside looks calm, you push, you struggle, you speak, you explain, you defend, but still peace feels far away. What if the answer wasn't to fight harder, speak louder, or chase more aggressively? What if the answer was silence? Silence isn't emptiness. Silence is strength. It's the space where clarity is born, the place where all the noise of the world loses power. Think about it. In silence, you hear your heartbeat. In silence, you notice your breath. In silence, you discover that you already have everything you need to move forward. Most people never give themselves this gift. They fill every moment with distraction, with endless scrolling, with conversations that add no value, with the pressure of proving themselves to others. And yet, the real breakthroughs in life never come from noise. They come from stillness. When you choose silence, you step away from the need to explain yourself to people who will never understand. You step away from the constant battle of trying to prove your worth. You stop feeding the noise of opinions, expectations, and criticism. You take back your power. The truth is, everything you want in life, confidence, direction, strength, peace, begins to rise when you stop chasing it outside and start listening within. And the only way to hear that inner voice is to get quiet enough to notice it. Think of the times you've been overwhelmed. Your mind ran in circles and every solution seemed out of reach. Then suddenly, maybe when you were walking alone or lying in bed late at night, the answer appeared. Not because you forced it, not because you shouted louder, but because silence opened the door. That's not an accident. That's how your mind works. When you create stillness, your brain organizes, your heart settles, and your soul speaks. Silence doesn't block life. Silence allows life to flow toward you naturally. The world will tell you that you must always be visible, always be speaking, always be proving. But the truth is, strength often hides in silence. The tree doesn't shout as it grows, yet it becomes mighty. The sun doesn't argue for its place, yet it rises every day without fail. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. And when you learn to embody that same quiet strength, life begins to align with you in ways you never expected. So why stay silent? Because silence is not weakness. Silence is preparation. It's the moment when your mind resets, your heart regains courage, and your purpose sharpens. It's the foundation of every breakthrough, the seed of every transformation. If you stay here with me, you will see how silence, instead of being an empty space, becomes the most powerful force for growth you've ever known. By the end, you will understand why you don't need to chase what is meant for you, because in silence, it will come to you naturally. Silence is not just about the absence of words. It is about creating space for your true self to breathe. When you stop filling every gap with noise, you begin to recognize the strength you have been overlooking all along. You realize that your worth has never depended on how much you say, how fast you respond, or how loudly you prove yourself. Your worth is built into your existence, and silence gives you the chance to feel it. In that stillness, the weight of trying to be enough for everyone else begins to fall away, and you finally start to feel enough for yourself. The mind, when quiet, becomes sharper. The emotions, when not constantly triggered by outside voices, become calmer. The body, when not pushed by endless stress, begins to heal. This is why silence is not a loss, but a gain. It is not an empty pause, but a deep recharge. Think about the most powerful people you've encountered. Their strength rarely comes from constant chatter. It comes from the calm, grounded presence that makes others lean in and listen. Silence makes people take notice because it carries the kind of energy that noise can never match. When you are silent, you also become more aware of what truly matters. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't deserve your attention. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop reacting to every little distraction designed to pull you off your path. Silence teaches you restraint, and restraint is power. Imagine how much stronger you would feel if every time someone doubted you, you didn't rush to defend yourself. Imagine how much energy you would save if you simply stayed quiet. Knowing the results of your actions will speak louder than any argument ever could. This is not about hiding. This is about mastering yourself. The one who can stay calm in silence is the one who cannot be controlled by chaos. The one who can remain still when others demand a reaction is the one who truly holds the power. In that silence, you gain the ability to respond with purpose instead of reacting out of impulse. You stop being tossed around by emotions and you start leading them. That is where self-mastery begins, when you no longer let the noise outside dictate the peace inside. There is also something magnetic about silence. People are drawn to those who do not need to constantly explain or prove themselves. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. The less you reveal through endless words, the more people sense there is depth within you. The quiet person in the room often holds the strongest presence because their silence is not emptiness, it is a statement. It says, I know who I am. I do not need to prove it. That kind of energy commands attention without demanding it. The beauty of silence is that it gives you back control. You no longer give away your energy to meaningless arguments, endless noise, or unnecessary distractions. You conserve your strength for what matters most, and slowly, everything begins to align. Opportunities feel like they find you. People respect you without you asking. The path forward clears, not because you forced it, but because silence allowed it to unfold naturally. This is how life rewards those who understand the power of staying silent. It opens doors that noise would have kept locked. The reason silence feels so powerful is because it connects you back to yourself. The world is constantly pulling at you, demanding pieces of your attention, scattering your focus until you feel drained and unsure. But in silence, you stop giving yourself away. You return home to your own energy, your own rhythm, your own truth. That is where clarity begins. Without silence, life feels like a blur of obligations, noise, and pressure. With silence, everything slows down, and you finally see what matters most. Every thought becomes sharper. Every decision becomes cleaner. You begin to realize that much of what used to trouble you wasn't even worth your energy in the first place. Silence strips away the unnecessary, leaving you with only what is real. That is why it feels so liberating. It clears the mental fog that noise creates. It takes away the heaviness of carrying everyone else's voices inside your head. And in that clearing, your own voice becomes stronger. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of doubt, but the steady voice of your inner wisdom that has always known the way forward. When you trust silence, you begin to act from a place of alignment rather than desperation. You no longer chase things just because others tell you to. You no longer feel pressured to respond to every expectation. Instead, you begin to move in harmony with who you truly are. And that harmony makes life flow. The opportunities that match your true self begin to appear naturally. The relationships that drain you start to fade. The direction that once felt impossible to see suddenly becomes undeniable. Silence doesn't just quiet the noise, it sharpens your vision. Most people resist silence because it feels uncomfortable at first. It forces them to face their own thoughts, their own fears, their own insecurities. But that discomfort is exactly where the growth happens. When you stay with silence instead of running from it, you begin to see that those fears and doubts don't define you. They are just noise inside your mind. And like all noise, they fade when you stop feeding them. The more you sit with silence, the more you realize how much stronger you are than the voices that try to hold you back. The strength you gain from silence is permanent because it doesn't depend on anyone else. No one can take it away from you. Once you've discovered the calm that silence brings, you carry it everywhere you go. You walk into stressful environments with a centered energy that cannot be shaken. You face challenges with a steady focus that refuses to be rushed. You deal with negativity without letting it touch your inner peace. Silence doesn't just prepare you for life. It transforms how you live every single moment of it. This is why silence feels like freedom. It frees you from the pressure to always respond, to always prove, to always fight for recognition. It frees you from the need to chase what is already meant for you. In silence, you no longer beg for life to notice you. You stand still, grounded, and life begins to notice you on its own. That is the quiet power that changes everything. Silence is the doorway to strength because it teaches you how to master yourself before you try to master anything else. When you sit in silence, you begin to notice the patterns of your own mind, the fears that repeat, the doubts that rise, the comparisons that weigh you down. At first, it feels uncomfortable to see them so clearly, but the longer you sit with them without reacting, the more you realize that they are only thoughts. They have no control over you unless you choose to give them power. This realization is where freedom begins, because when you stop fighting every thought, you stop being a prisoner to your own mind. Noise makes you reactive. Silence makes you deliberate. The world pushes you to answer quickly, to defend yourself instantly, to prove your point without pause. But when you practice silence, you learn that not every word requires a response. Not every challenge requires a battle. Not every situation requires your energy. You conserve your strength, and in doing so, you gain a power that most people will never know. The one who speaks less often carries more weight when they finally do. The one who reacts less impulsively makes stronger moves when it matters most. This shift in energy changes everything. Suddenly, you are no longer drained by constant arguments, meaningless distractions, or the endless need to prove yourself. Instead, you start moving with intention. You begin to act only when action is necessary, and when you do, your actions carry undeniable force. People begin to notice your presence not because you shout for attention, but because your silence has made your energy unshakable. This is how influence is built, not through noise, but through a quiet strength that others cannot ignore. Silence also deepens your connection with yourself. In the quiet, you learn what truly drives you, what truly matters to you, and what you have been doing only to satisfy others. You begin to see where you have been compromising your happiness just to fit expectations. And once you see it, you can no longer go back to living on autopilot. You start to take back control of your choices. You stop running in circles trying to keep everyone else happy, and you begin to build a life that feels right for you. That clarity is priceless, and it can only be found in silence. Every time you choose silence over noise, you take a step closer to mastery. You start to understand that real confidence doesn't come from proving yourself to others. It comes from not needing to. Real courage doesn't come from shouting over the noise. It comes from knowing you don't have to. Real peace doesn't come from trying to silence the world. It comes from silencing yourself long enough to see that the world cannot touch your inner calm unless you allow it. This is the gift silence gives you. It makes you stronger than your fears, clearer than your doubts, and calmer than the chaos around you. It sharpens your focus, deepens your presence, and restores your power. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, silence is no longer something you step into. It becomes who you are. A grounded, powerful force that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't break. A force that knows everything it needs will come because it is already aligned within. The quiet strength you carry within is not meant to be hidden. It is meant to guide how you move through the world. When you live from silence, you stop needing to compete with noise because you understand that true power is never loud. It is steady. It is calm. It is undeniable. The moment you stop scrambling for validation, you begin to radiate an energy that draws people and opportunities toward you without effort. That is the paradox of silence. The less you push, the more life flows. Silence builds trust in yourself. When you don't rush to fill every gap with explanations, you start to believe in your ability to stand on your own. You begin to see that you do not need constant reassurance or approval. You already carry everything you need inside of you. Each moment of silence reinforces this truth. It strengthens your confidence not with empty words, but with real proof that you can face discomfort, doubt, and uncertainty without breaking. That is the kind of strength that lasts when life tests you. In silence, your mind learns patience. You no longer expect everything to arrive immediately because you understand that the best things in life take time to unfold. This patience removes desperation. You stop clinging to outcomes. You stop begging for results. Instead, you trust the process and allow things to develop at their natural pace. This shift changes how you experience every challenge. Instead of panicking when things don't go your way, you breathe, you wait, and you act only when the moment is right. That calm discipline is what transforms setbacks into setups for growth. Silence also sharpens your intuition. Without constant noise clouding your thoughts, you begin to hear the quiet signals your heart has always been sending. You sense when something feels right. You notice when something feels wrong. You recognize opportunities that align with your true path and let go of the distractions that lead you astray. This inner guidance system grows stronger every time you honor silence, and over time it becomes impossible to ignore. You stop chasing things that don't belong to you and start moving confidently toward what does. This is why silence feels like alignment with life itself. You are no longer swimming against the current, exhausting yourself with resistance. You are no longer forcing what isn't ready. You allow life to move with you. And in that flow, everything feels lighter. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become more authentic. Your path becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts the right outcomes. Silence makes you magnetic, not because you are trying to be, but because your presence carries peace in a world that is starved for it. The longer you practice silence, the more you realize that this is not about withdrawing from life. It is about engaging with it more deeply. Noise distracts you from the essence of living, but silence brings you face to face with it. In silence, gratitude grows. In silence, awareness expands. In silence, you finally see the beauty that noise always made you overlook. And the more you see, the more you understand that life doesn't have to be forced. Everything you need, everything you dream of begins to move towards you naturally because you are finally aligned with the rhythm of life itself. The deeper you sink into silence, the more you realize it is not passive, it is active transformation. It is the training ground for resilience, the space where you build strength without anyone watching. While others waste their energy on noise, you are quietly shaping yourself into someone unshakable. Silence teaches you discipline because it requires restraint. It teaches you focus because it strips away distraction. And it teaches you courage because it forces you to face your own thoughts and rise above them. These lessons are invisible to the outside world, but they are the foundation of every visible success you will ever create. Noise makes people fragile because they depend on constant validation to feel strong. But silence makes you durable because your strength no longer relies on anything external. You become the kind of person who can endure pressure without breaking, who can carry disappointment without losing direction, who can face rejection without questioning their worth. This is the silent power that separates those who crumble from those who rise. You do not need the world to agree with you when you have already agreed with yourself. Silence also frees you from comparison. When you are quiet within, you stop measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. You stop chasing after timelines that were never meant for you. You stop seeing other people's success as a threat and start seeing it as proof that greatness is possible for everyone, including you. This shift removes envy, and in its place, it plants focus. You start investing all the energy you once wasted on comparison into your own growth. That focus compounds, and over time, it becomes unstoppable momentum. Patience becomes your ally, and with patience comes mastery. You begin to trust that every delay is not a denial, but a preparation. You stop panicking when things don't arrive on your schedule because you understand that silence is not empty. It is the quiet work of alignment. Seeds take time to grow, and silence is the soil that allows them to take root. The person who can wait in silence is the person who will one day harvest abundance without forcing it. In this space, you also learn emotional control. Noise provokes quick reactions, but silence gives you the strength to pause. That pause changes everything. It stops you from saying words you'll regret, from making decisions you'll resent, from wasting energy on battles that don't matter. In silence, you create distance between impulse and action, and in that distance lies wisdom. You no longer react just to prove yourself. You respond with clarity to protect your path. That is the mark of true maturity. The reward of living this way is freedom. Freedom from the noise of the world, freedom from the chaos of the mind, freedom from the pressure to constantly perform. Silence allows you to carry peace wherever you go, no matter what surrounds you. And that peace is magnetic. People will feel it. They will sense your strength without you needing to announce it. They will respect your presence without you demanding it. And most importantly, life itself will begin to mirror the calm and clarity you carry inside. But everything you once chased will start moving toward you naturally because you have become the kind of person who no longer resists, no longer forces, and no longer doubts. When you embrace silence as your foundation, you begin to notice that it changes how you move through every challenge. Obstacles that once felt overwhelming no longer control you because you approach them with calm instead of panic. Silence teaches you that strength is not about pushing harder against life, but about allowing life to unfold without losing your center. You stop treating every setback as a disaster and start seeing it as part of the natural rhythm. The quiet within you becomes a shield that protects you from being consumed by chaos. This shift is more than just emotional. It is psychological. Silence resets the nervous system. It lowers the stress that constant noise creates. It rewires your brain to handle pressure with clarity instead of confusion. In silence, you gain the ability to see patterns that noise hides. You notice opportunities others overlook because they are too distracted. You recognize solutions that others miss because they are too busy reacting. What once felt like chaos now feels like a series of choices, and in that awareness, you gain control. The deeper you grow in silence, the more you realize that life does not reward the loudest person in the room. It rewards the most centered. The ones who move with quiet confidence create the greatest impact, not because they dominate with words, but because they radiate stability in a world filled with uncertainty. People naturally trust those who carry calm energy because calm energy signals strength. When you master silence, you become that anchor for yourself and for others. Without trying, you become a source of inspiration simply by existing in a state of grounded presence. Silence also deepens self-respect. When you stop scattering your words everywhere, you begin to value them more. You speak only when it matters, and when you do, your words carry weight. This teaches you to respect your own voice, and that respect spreads into every part of your life. You stop settling for situations that drain you. You stop chasing approval from people who don't value you. You start building a life that reflects your worth because silence has shown you that you don't need noise to be seen. You only need authenticity. This quiet strength prepares you for opportunities in a way noise never could. While others burn out trying to force outcomes, you are cultivating patience, clarity, and focus. When the right moment arrives, you are ready, not scattered, not drained, but steady and clear. This is how silence turns into action without force. It allows everything you have been preparing for to align naturally because you have not wasted yourself on battles that never mattered. The greatest reward is that silence gives you peace no one can take away, a peace that isn't shaken by opinions, by criticism, or by the storms of life. It is the kind of peace that keeps you strong when everything outside is uncertain. And from that peace, everything else flows: confidence, resilience, clarity, opportunity. Silence becomes your unshakable ground, and from that ground you rise. Not with noise, not with desperation, but with the quiet certainty that everything meant for you will find its way. Without force, without struggle, simply and naturally. Silence is not the absence of movement. It is the birthplace of the right movement. It clears away the noise that pushes you toward rushed choices and shows you the path that was always waiting for you. When you stand in silence, you are no longer pulled by the urgency of others or the weight of their opinions. You begin to move from a place of alignment instead of pressure. And when your actions come from alignment, they carry a power that scattered effort can never produce. In silence, your relationship with time changes. You stop living in constant urgency, chasing everything as if it will disappear if you don't grab it immediately. You begin to understand that what is meant for you cannot be stolen, delayed, or lost. This truth liberates you. It allows you to move steadily instead of desperately. It gives you patience when the world demands haste. And in that patience, you make decisions with clarity instead of fear. That is why silence creates stronger results, because it teaches you to wait for the right moment instead of wasting yourself on the wrong ones. This calmness builds inner confidence. When you no longer feel the need to explain yourself, defend yourself, or prove yourself, you begin to carry yourself differently. You walk with a quiet assurance that others can feel even if they cannot explain it. This confidence is not arrogance, it is a natural outcome of trusting yourself. Silence shows you that you are capable of handling life without needing constant validation. The more you sit in that truth, the less power outside opinions have over you. What silence also gives you is focus. Without constant distraction, you can direct all your energy into what truly matters. You stop scattering your attention across 100 meaningless things, and you begin to channel it into the few things that will change your life. This focus turns ordinary effort into extraordinary progress. It is the reason why those who embrace silence often achieve more with less struggle, because their energy is not wasted, it is concentrated. And then comes peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on perfect circumstances, but the deep peace that stays even when life is imperfect. This peace makes you unshakable. It makes you strong enough to keep going when others give up. It allows you to hold steady when storms come because you know storms cannot last forever. When you have peace within, you stop being afraid of chaos around you. You no longer live at the mercy of the world. You live anchored in your own strength. That is why silence is a form of power. It is the foundation of clarity, the source of focus, the root of peace, and the origin of true strength. The more you embrace it, the more you realize that everything you have been searching for was never outside of you. It was waiting within, hidden beneath the noise. When you honor silence, you uncover it. And once you uncover it, you no longer chase life. You allow life to rise to meet you naturally and without force. The quiet you create within yourself becomes the strongest signal you send to the world. It tells life that you are no longer desperate, no longer chasing, no longer trapped in the endless cycle of proving. Instead, you stand still, and from that stillness, you attract what aligns with your strength. Silence makes you magnetic because it communicates certainty without words. People can feel it. They sense that you are not moved by pressure, not shaken by doubt, not controlled by fear. That presence alone carries more influence than any noise ever could. This is why silence transforms your relationships. When you are grounded, you stop seeking validation from others. You stop clinging to people who drain your energy. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you begin to attract connections built on respect, depth, and authenticity. Silence filters out the shallow and makes space for the meaningful. It shows others that your value is not negotiable, and only those who honor it will remain in your life. That shift changes the quality of every interaction you have because you no longer come from a place of need. You come from a place of strength. In silence, you also begin to hear the truth about what you want. Noise convinces you to follow paths that were never yours, to chase goals that do not belong to your heart. But when you are quiet, you notice the whisper of your true desires. They have always been there, buried under layers of doubt and expectation. Silence gives them room to rise. It reveals what makes you come alive, what direction feels authentic, what choices carry peace instead of tension. And once you know this truth, you cannot unknow it. You begin to move toward it, not because you are forcing yourself, but because silence has stripped away everything false. This alignment creates a life that feels lighter. You are no longer running in circles, exhausting yourself with distractions. You are moving with clarity. You are investing your time, energy, and heart into what actually matters. That is why silence is not wasted time. It is the most valuable use of your time. It ensures that your effort is never scattered, but concentrated on what will bring true fulfillment. And when your effort aligns with your purpose, life begins to open in ways you once thought were impossible. The more you practice silence, the less you feel the need to control outcomes. You begin to trust that the right things will find you at the right time. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you wise. You still take action, but your action is no longer desperate or frantic. It is deliberate, calm, and powerful. This calm action creates results that noise can never match because it comes from clarity instead of confusion, from strength instead of fear. Silence, then, is not an escape from life. It is the highest way of engaging with it. It is where you find your truth, where you discover your strength, where you align with your path. And once you carry this silence inside you, nothing outside can shake you. You no longer fight against life. You move with it. And in that flow, everything meant for you comes naturally, effortlessly, and in perfect time. The strength of silence is that it places you firmly in control of yourself. And when you control yourself, nothing outside of you can dictate the direction of your life. Noise is fueled by reaction. It wants you to be triggered, to be pulled, to be scattered. But silence interrupts that cycle. It gives you the pause that transforms chaos into clarity. In that pause, you decide who you will be. You decide what deserves your energy and what does not. You decide whether to rise above or be pulled under. That choice is the essence of freedom, and silence is what gives it to you. With silence, you discover that your worth has nothing to do with being noticed, with being louder, with proving a point. Worth is not something you earn through noise. It is something you embody through presence. The quiet person who knows who they are is always stronger than the loud one who does not. You begin to see that you don't need to explain yourself because your energy already speaks for you. You don't need to convince anyone because your actions will always reveal the truth. This realization takes away the constant pressure of performance and replaces it with an unshakable calm. That calm is not weakness. It is a discipline that takes more strength than shouting ever could. To remain silent when provoked, to remain still when pressured, to remain focused when distracted. That is true mastery. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are proving to yourself that you are greater than your impulses, greater than your doubts, greater than the noise that tries to pull you off course. You are reminding yourself that peace is power, and the one who carries peace cannot be broken. Silence also trains you to see beyond the surface. While others are consumed by appearances, by the rush of what looks urgent, you are patient enough to wait for what is real. You no longer chase illusions because you understand that noise is often a mask. Silence allows you to see through it. You begin to recognize authenticity, and you learn to align with it. This protects you from wasted time, wasted energy, and wasted trust. Your life becomes lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of false connections or false pursuits. The longer you hold silence, the more you realize it is a form of self-respect. You respect yourself enough not to pour your energy into arguments that go nowhere. You respect yourself enough not to explain your dreams to people who cannot see them. You respect yourself enough to wait, to trust, to know that what is meant for you cannot be taken away. This respect radiates outward, and others begin to treat you with the same value you show yourself. Silence is how you teach the world how to handle you. And with this respect comes alignment. Your inner world and outer world begin to mirror each other. What you carry within starts to shape what you experience outside, because when you are silent, steady and clear, you send a message to life itself. I am ready. I am not forcing. I am not doubting. I am standing strong and I trust. That trust shifts everything. Opportunities begin to appear without struggle. The right people begin to enter without effort. The right path begins to open without resistance. Silence turns you into a magnet for what is truly yours, and it comes to you naturally, as if it was always waiting. The beauty of silence is that it makes room for your inner voice to rise above the noise of the world. That voice, the one you've ignored, doubted, or drowned out, has always known who you are and what you're capable of. When you allow space for it, you hear the truth that fear tried to bury. You hear the strength you forgot you had. You hear the clarity that was waiting for you all along. And suddenly, you're no longer searching outside for answers because you realize the answers have always been within you. That inner voice does not scream. It does not beg. It whispers, it guides. It points you toward the path that aligns with your soul, but only silence can amplify it. When you learn to trust that voice, you no longer need the validation of others. You no longer need permission. You no longer need applause. You act because you know it is right. You move because you know it is time. You rise because you were born to. That kind of certainty is unshakable, and it can never be taken away from you. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you strengthen the connection with that voice. And with every choice, you begin to notice how different your energy feels. You no longer rush into battles that don't matter. You no longer give your peace away to people who haven't earned it. You begin to live with precision, with intention, with focus. This is where power begins, not in trying to control the world, but in mastering yourself. When you master yourself, life bends in your direction. Opportunities align because you are aligned. The things you used to chase start chasing you. The people you once tried to convince now find themselves drawn to your presence, because real power doesn't chase, it attracts, and it attracts effortlessly, not through force, but through authenticity. Silence strips away the performance and reveals the real you. That authenticity is magnetic, and nothing can compete with it. But silence is not just about listening to yourself. It is also about hearing life. It is about paying attention to what the world is showing you, what it is teaching you, what it is inviting you to become. Most people miss these lessons because they are too busy filling every empty space with noise. They miss the signals, the openings, the chances for growth, because they cannot stand still long enough to see them. Silence makes you receptive. It sharpens your awareness. It gives you vision. And when you have vision, you cannot be distracted by what is meaningless because you are too focused on what is necessary. That focus builds momentum. Every quiet decision compounds into strength. Every moment of restraint becomes a victory. Every time you choose presence over reaction, you reclaim a piece of your power. Slowly, those pieces come together to form a life that feels unbreakable, not because nothing challenges you, but because nothing shakes you anymore. You are no longer defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you rise from it. And silence is the ground you rise from. It is in the silence where you realize that you were never lacking, never behind, never powerless. You simply needed to step away from the noise to see it. You already carry the resilience, the strength, and the brilliance that you've been searching for. Silence does not give you power. It reveals the power that was already yours. The more you begin to recognize the strength hidden in silence, the more you understand that true confidence has nothing to do with volume. It has nothing to do with how loudly you speak or how aggressively you move. Real confidence is quiet. It is steady. It does not need to be announced or explained. It simply exists. When you walk into a room with that kind of energy, people feel it before you ever say a word. They sense the calm certainty within you, and it shifts the entire atmosphere. That is the kind of presence silence builds, a presence so strong that it speaks without sound. Think about how most people live. They rush to prove themselves, to justify their worth, to constantly defend who they are. That constant need to be seen is born out of insecurity, and insecurity will never create peace. The moment you learn to rest in silence, you no longer need to prove anything. You are no longer chasing validation. You are no longer dependent on recognition. You stand still, and in that stillness you carry a strength that cannot be shaken. That is where real freedom begins. The freedom of no longer needing the world's approval to move forward. This freedom allows you to use your energy differently. Instead of pouring yourself into battles that leave you drained, you start investing in growth that builds you up. Instead of reacting to every opinion, you conserve your strength for the decisions that truly matter. And that discipline creates a new level of clarity. You know where to place your focus. You know what deserves your time. You know what aligns with your path and what doesn't. That precision turns you into someone who no longer wastes life on what is meaningless. Silence also teaches you patience, and patience is a rare kind of power. Most people quit before they see results because they cannot sit still long enough to let growth happen naturally. But when you embrace silence, you discover the value of waiting without frustration. You learn that progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. You realize that just because you cannot see change in this moment does not mean change isn't happening. It is in silence that seeds take root. It is in silence that strength is built. It is in silence that transformation begins. This kind of patience makes you unstoppable because you no longer panic when life doesn't unfold on your timeline. You trust the process. You trust yourself. You trust that what is meant for you cannot be taken, and what isn't meant for you will fall away. That kind of trust removes fear from the equation. And without fear, you move with a boldness that feels natural. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You start flowing. And in that flow, everything begins to align. When you live this way, you discover that silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is not weakness. It is strength. It is not a lack of expression. It is the highest form of expression. Silence says, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I don't need to shout it. I will live it. And when you live with that kind of quiet certainty, the world cannot ignore you. You become undeniable, not by speaking louder, but by moving deeper. That is the kind of transformation silence creates. Silence sharpens your awareness in ways noise never can. When the distractions fade, you begin to notice what has always been present but overlooked. You feel the rhythm of your breath. You sense the subtle pull of intuition guiding you forward. You recognize the emotions you once buried beneath busyness. This heightened awareness is not weakness, it is power. It is the foundation of self-mastery because you cannot change what you refuse to notice. In silence, nothing can hide. Not your fears, not your doubts, not your dreams. They all rise to the surface. And when they do, you finally have the chance to face them with honesty and strength. That honesty is where transformation begins. The moment you see yourself clearly, you stop living on autopilot. You stop letting old patterns control your future. You stop pretending that you are fine when deep down you know you want more. Silence removes the excuses because excuses thrive in noise. Excuses lose their grip when confronted with truth. And when you stand face to face with truth, you feel the weight of responsibility settle in. Responsibility to change, responsibility to rise, responsibility to no longer settle for less than what you are capable of. That responsibility may feel heavy, but it is also liberating because it reminds you that your life is in your hands. Silence also reveals the difference between reaction and response. Most people spend their days reacting, snapping, rushing, defending, proving. But when you learn the discipline of silence, you create space between stimulus and action. That space is everything. In that space, you can choose a wiser path. You can respond with clarity instead of impulse. You can move with strategy instead of emotion. You can hold your ground instead of being pulled into meaningless battles. This ability to pause, to wait, to decide with intention, this is what separates strength from weakness. It is what gives you control in a world that tries to pull you in every direction. And when you have control over yourself, the outside world loses its power to control you. Criticism no longer stings the same way. Failure no longer defines you. Chaos no longer overwhelms you because you have built an inner anchor, and silence is that anchor. It holds you steady when everything around you feels uncertain. It reminds you that storms pass, but your center remains. It reminds you that the opinions of others cannot shake truth. It reminds you that peace is not found outside. It is cultivated within. That inner peace is what gives birth to unshakable confidence. Not the shallow confidence that comes from being noticed or admired, but the kind that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes. The kind that whispers, I will endure, I will grow, I will rise. This is the reward of silence, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of unbreakable strength. The kind of strength that makes you untouchable, because no matter what happens outside, nothing can steal the calm you have built inside. When you begin to live from this place, you no longer chase life. You attract it. You no longer beg for respect. You embody it. You no longer waste energy on proving your worth. You show it in silence and discipline in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. That is when everything begins to come naturally, because you have stopped fighting the world and started mastering yourself. And once you master yourself, life itself bends to meet you.